S.B. Moyo, our Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. We have also Honorable Kazembe Kazembe, our Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Professor Mutuli Nyube, and also the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education, Honorable Matema, is with us also. I just want to check if I missed them. Oh, yes, we have the Minister for Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare, Honorable Professor Mavima. Thank you very much. Those are the ministers who are here. Today, Cabinet received an update. This report was on the country's response to the COVID-19 outbreak. The report was presented by the Minister of Defense and War Veterans Affairs as the ad hoc interministerial task force chair. 20. Zimbabwe had recorded a total of 8,099 COVID-19 cases, 7,673 recoveries, and 231 deaths. The national recovery rate is 95%. 6,712 of the COVID-19 positive cases are local transmissions. New cases for week 41 stood at 105 compared to 207 in week 40. Regarding the supply of testing consumables, it's worth noting that the 21,080 GeneXpert cartridges in stock are sufficient for over 6 months, giving room for the country to stock up on other consumables required. The Ministry of Health and Child Care is updating guidelines on the wearing of face masks by children in order to strengthen the control and prevention of infection in schools and communities. Cabinet was also advised that following the resumption of domestic and international flights, Lancet, Genau, and pathology laboratories have commissioned testing facilities at Robert Gabriel Mugabe Airport and Joshua Nkomo Airport, and also Victoria Falls International Airport. Monitoring teams have also been dispatched to our land borders, that is Beitbridge, Plumtree, Kazungula, Victoria Falls, Kariba, Chirundu, Nyamapanda, and Forbes border posts. They're going to assess the state of preparedness of the country land ports of entry to handle how they can handle increased human and vehicular traffic. On materials production, Cabinet notes that there has been an increase in demand for disposable masks and sanitizers. This is following the recent reopening of schools for examination classes. There are adequate stocks of most locally produced PPEs and medicines for supportive management of COVID-19 cases. And satisfactory quantities of raw materials are also there for increased production in the event of a surge in demand. Cabinet continues to remind citizens that COVID-19 regulations are there to protect ourselves and prevent the spread of this pandemic, and therefore it should be adhered at all times. Concerning the protection and support of vulnerable groups, it is highlighted that a total of 51,308 beneficiary households were paid a total of $30,813,019 under the Urban Cash for Cereal program. In addition, a total of 66,509 beneficiary households were paid $39,978,559. These are allowances for the COVID-19 induced transitory poor, with more to be paid as Treasury continues to avail the required cash for this form of relief. In the education sector, the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education continues to monitor the daily attendance of examination classes. Teachers and pupils countrywide is also being monitored. For the week ending 16 October 2020, increased overall teacher attendance was recorded in Masvingo, Matabeleland North, and Manicaland compared to the attendance statistics for the previous week. The Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education will this week conduct field visits to assess school preparedness for the impending phase 2, which will see grade 6, Form 3, and Form 5 lessons resuming classes. Then we go to the report, the second report which Cabinet received was phase 2 of the Belarus Farm Mechanization Program. Cabinet considered and approved phase 2 of the Belarus Farm Mechanization Facility, and this report was presented by the Minister of Lands, Agriculture, Water and Rural Settlement, Dr. Masuka. Under phase 2, the Republic of Belarus will supply an additional US $51,940,149 worth of farm mechanization equipment, following the successful launch of the first US $51 million facility on 30th September 2020. The 1,337 tractors and 5 disc harrows and 16 combine harvesters will be supplied under phase 2, and this will raise the mechanized tillage area by 133,700 hectares. The implements for the tractors will be acquired locally, since government has already started the process of capacitating local industry to manufacture tractor drone implements. Through this approach, the country will get more tractor units, save on foreign currency, and capacitate the local industry, and that's also creating employment. Then the next report was on the proposed toll manufacturing of dipping chemicals for the National Dipping Program. This report was presented by the Minister of Lands, Agriculture, Water and Rural Settlement, Honorable Dr. Masuka, and this is a very important one on the proposal on toll manufacturing of dipping chemicals for the National Dipping Program, and this was adopted by Cabinet. Having noted the challenges faced by farmers across the countries due to tick-borne diseases, government has put in place the proposed toll manufacturing program. Under this program, the Department of Veterinary Services will procure imported raw materials, while Chemplex will locally produce materials which are required for the manufacture of the dipping chemicals. This will ensure that the major challenge of shortage of foreign currency is also overcome. Large savings in the total cost of production will also be realized when the government imports just the raw materials from international suppliers, whilst Chemplex concentrates on toll manufacturing for government. Then the report which the cabinet also received reports on the 600-day cycle projects. These reports were given progress report in the implementation of the 600-day cycle projects were given by several ministers, that's Ministers of Home Affairs and Cultural Heritage, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Finance and Economic Development, Minister of Health and Child Care, Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, and Minister of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services. The Minister of Home Affairs and Cultural Heritage highlighted that the decentralization of passport services to Chitungwiza district is 28% complete, with cabling, network connection, equipment installation and procurement and configuration of computer hardware and software still outstanding. The Mbuyane-Handa Memorial Statue is now 70% complete, and the statue is now ready for mounting. It will be mounted once the base structure is complete. And then following are other projects that the ministry is undertaking during this current cycle. Construction of superstructure for Chimoyo Camp Flat C in Harare. That's for the Republic Police. Then the other project is Chiremba Balancing Rocks Monument in Epworth in Harare. Then the third is the Staff Archives of Zimbabwe, ZCC Mbumbo, that's in Bikita in Masvingo. And then the construction of bachelor's flats at Kazungula Border Post. Those are the projects for the Minister of Home Affairs. Then the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade reported that he had held and delivered lectures, held diplomatic briefings, and conducted interviews which had significantly boosted the country's image internationally. The re-engagement and engagement program had continued slowly due to travel constraints occasioned by the COVID-19 outbreak. Engagements with the USA and the EU will continue until sanctions are lifted. On a positive note, consumer service continues to be enhanced with usage of virtual platforms. And the Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Professor Mthuli Ncube, highlighted that the National Development Strategy 2021-2025 remained on course for launching in early November 2020 with the draft document approval processes. And on the country's finances, revenues continued to improve due to enhanced revenue collection and administration. Government managed to pay salaries on due dates and was able to increase salaries in June and September. The ministry has also undertaken the following projects during the current cycle. That's 1, pre-budget strategy paper, 2, financial re-engagements, 3, strengthening of the PFMS system, 4, launch of the development cooperation policy and manual procedures, 5, implementation, and 6, external resource mobilization. Then the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs highlighted that the ministry had successfully launched the food production programs at various prisons, farms. Other projects include fighting corruption, construction of Chinhoyi and Mount Darwin Magistrates Courts, as well as Judicial Services Commission offices at the same sites. Then the Minister of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services reported that were at various stages of implementation. 1, refurbishment of the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education's radio studio. 2, construction of a solar-powered mobile stage and public address system for radio road shows. 3, production of COVID-19 infomercials in 2020 Heroes Commemoration skits, radio and television jingles in 16 national official languages. And 4, installation of an outdoor public viewing screen in Umguza district in Matabeleland North. The Honorable Vice President CDN Chiwenga, as the Minister of Health and Child Care, outlined the projects being undertaken by his ministry as follows. Construction of a primary care center in Harare South. 2, establishment of the Bartley Memorial Block, COVID-19 Isolation and Treatment Center, and then obstetric fistula unit at the United Bulawayo Hospitals. 3, the rolling out of the electronic health record system, COVID-19 status, electronic tracking system, and 4, of COVID-19 community isolation centers in Bulawayo and Matabeleland South provinces. Then Cabinet also received a report on the Zimbabwe Liberation War Museum concept and implementation plan. Cabinet considered and approved the concept and implementation plan on the Zimbabwe Liberation War Museums. This was presented by the Minister of Home Affairs and Cultural Heritage, Honorable Kazembe Kazembe. This is in line with the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which specifies the need for Zimbabwe and its people to remember and uphold the country's liberation history by commemorating, in quotes, our heroic resistance to colonialism, racism, and all forms of domination and oppression, exalting and extolling the brave men and women who sacrificed their lives during the Chimurenga, Umfukela, and National Liberation Struggle. The purpose of the museum is to tell the story of Zimbabwe's liberation struggle in its totality and to display the associated other objects and artifacts. The Liberation War Museum aims to unpack the rich heritage established by the sacrifices and commitment of the gallant freedom fighters, commitment of institutions, commitment of individuals, and commitment of communities to the liberation of Zimbabwe. As such, the museum will stimulate the celebration of freedom and cultural diversity among Zimbabweans, thus fostering a deep sense of belonging, pride, and identity among the Zimbabwean citizenry. Most importantly, the museum will allow Zimbabweans to tell their own story of the liberation struggle, thereby establishing the true facts of the struggle as opposed to the current situation whereby the story is told by outsiders who may have vested interests which are contrary to Zimbabwe's interests. It will also highlight pre-colonial Zimbabwean civilizations and innovations, as well as give an in-depth understanding of colonial conquest and how it affected the economic, political, and social foundations of the country. As a country born out of protracted liberation struggle, Zimbabwe is anchored upon the shared history of the struggle against colonial conquest and the sacrifices that various people made towards attainment of independence. It is against this background that it is of utmost importance for the country to establish a museum dedicated to the collection, preservation, and presentation of material on the country's liberation struggle. Economically, the museum will inspire creative industries since it incorporates studios for the various genres and other value chain aspects of the visual and performance arts. The museum will also attract high volumes of domestic and international tourists from both the general public and specific interest groups. Among others, the museum will include the following significant components: permanent and temporary galleries, library and information center, a research center, conference facilities, and an audio-visual studio. That's for the museum. On the medicinal cannabis production program. Government passed measures and regulations guiding investments into cannabis production. A competitive regime of incentives has been put in place to attract the needed investment. Details in that regard can be obtained through the Zimbabwe Investment Development Agency, ZIDA. Then last but not least, Cabinet received a report on the proposed review of board fees and sitting allowances for non-executive directors of our public entities. Cabinet considered and approved a proposal to review upwards the board fees and sitting allowances of non-executive directors for state enterprises and parastatals. The fees and allowances were last reviewed in October 2019. I thank you sincerely for listening. Now,
thank you, Honorable Minister. Now we are giving members of the media the opportunity to ask questions. Who wants to start the ball rolling? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Blessed Mhlanga from Heart and Soul TV and Radio. Most of the parastatals are not performing, and the Ministry of Finances put out a plan to dispose some of these non-performing parastatals who are eating into the fiscus. So, what is the rationale of increasing board fees and allowances for entities that are actually non-performing and that you want to shed off? And the other question is that there's going to be an update on mask wearing regime. I just wanted clarity. The police are demanding that people, when you are driving, even by yourself in your private car, you should be wearing a mask. What is the rationale of that line of thinking? Is that the law, or is the police acting at their own will?
Okay. Any other volunteer? Yes, please.
Abigail Tembo from ZBC News. From the report, I noticed that from the Ministry of Health and Child Care, there's nothing being said about cancer. We are in Breast Cancer Month and nothing is being said. And from what we are seeing, treatment for cancer is one of the most expensive. Nothing which is being said. What is the government doing to cushion those who are suffering from cancer?
At the back. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kudzai Mazir. I'm a freelance journalist. My question is going to the Minister of Home Affairs pertaining the projects that are being done in the 100-day cycle. We understand that the Mbuyane Under statue is now 70% complete. And the other project, which is a decentralization of passport services in Chitungwiza, is around 28%. So I would want to know what's the rationale that's being used in terms of prioritizing these projects in the 100-day cycle, so that at least we have projects that directly benefit the people mostly prioritized. Thank you.
Those 4 questions.
Thank you very much, Chief Secretary. Blessed, I am not sure we talked about this, but since the minister is here, okay, it's about the board fees issue. Minister of Finance, you are here. Blessed is saying most parastatals are not performing. And so what is the rationale of increasing the board fees when you intend to shed them off? Minister?
Thank you very much, Blessed. Thank you for the question. We had not adjusted board fees for parastatals since October 2019. So in terms of inflation erosion, they've faced quite a tough challenges as board members, and they're still attending board meetings. So we had to just make an adjustment on a blanket basis just to deal with the inflationary pressures that they were facing. But secondly, in doing so, we have we've taken into account as to whether these are commercial parastatals or non-commercial parastatals. So there's a differentiation there. We've overlaid something else really which speaks to what you have raised, which is the performance. We've created 3 categories. So for those parastatals in each of those categories that are making a profit, that are barely above water, breaking even, and those that are loss-making. And again, the increases differ according to the performance of these parastatals. So we've overlaid the performance issue that you've rightly pointed out. But the principle of raising board salaries, or rather board sitting fees, is the right one in the face of inflation and the fact that we've done nothing about it as government since October 2019. Thank you very much.
Minister, because I'm doing you. And then his second question, however, this is going to the chairperson of the task force, or to Minister Kazembe Kazembe, since you're here, maybe. He says this is what he has observed, right? He said police are demanding that even when you're driving alone in the car, you should be donning your mask, otherwise you're in trouble. And he says, what is the rationale? Minister Kazembe Kazembe.
I would defer to the chairperson.
The chairperson, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Blessed, for the question. I think we can attack it from a philosophical angle. The mask is for personal, the virus. And it is very important that we always put on our mask in public. I'm sure a car does not move in a house, it moves in public. Therefore, for protection, just to make sure that everybody is safe, it is important that we put on our masks. And I am sure that is to the advantage of the mask wearer and the public that a mask should be donned. I think it's the most required minimum. We're using that tactic. Zimbabwe, for now, has been able to have only about 8,000 something cases. Other countries have got much more than that. And we believe that this is because of the cooperation of the Zimbabweans in protecting themselves and protecting others by putting on face masks. I think it is also not, I think it's not, it's really unfortunate that people have to be told by the police to put on their masks. They must be able to put on their masks because it's for their own protection. So when police ask you to put on masks, I think they are doing a good job by doing that. But I think they can do better if the public and if people just put on their masks. And this is my answer to say it is for personal protection and protecting others. And it's so important that we always put on our masks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, Vice Chair of the Interministerial Task Force on COVID-19. I think besides the police are there to be talking, to be interacting with these drivers, so it's important that when you interact with anybody else, you should be wearing your mask. Then Abigail Tembo, Abigail Tembo would like to know, she actually says on the report, I just want to say these reports are of the 600-day cycle projects. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the Ministry of Health and Child Care are not concerned by a very important issue, which you've just mentioned, of cancer. I think what would be fair, it would be for you to contact the Ministry of Health and Child Care and get a proper explanation of exactly what they're doing. But I don't know, I know Professor Mogira was acting in that ministry for quite some time. If you would like to say what the Ministry of Health is doing about cancer, especially the fact that this is a cancer month. Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't know whether it's fair to say they are not doing anything about it. I think it's important to say we have to continue doing more on all diseases, because most of the times when we are in the COVID-19, there is a question of are other health services being catered for? And this is being addressed every Monday that we have a meeting. It is very important that this question has been asked. And by asking this question, I think Abigail is helping us highlight the importance of focusing on non-communicable diseases such as breast cancer. And so I want to thank you for that question, because we are able to talk about it. By talking about it, we are putting the public eye on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Professor Mogira, for that. And then Kudzai Madzere is directing his question to the Minister of Home Affairs and Cultural Heritage. He mentioned that, yes, he has heard about the Mbuyane-Handa project, which is 70% complete, and the decentralization of passports in Chitungwiza, which is about 20%. And his question, I'm not sure what Kudzai Madziri is trying to say, but his question is, what is the rationale? How do you choose those priority projects?
I think I got his question. It would appear that Kudzai thinks the Mbuyane-Handa project is not equally important. Why 70% complete? And yet the passport decentralization project is at 28%. I suspect that that's what he's trying to say. Both projects are very important. And in fact, if you ask me, the Mbuyane-Handa project is even more important given the contribution that Mbuyane-Handa did to the liberation struggle. This is probably why we are now working on the Liberation War Museum. It's very important for us as Zimbabweans to know how Mbuyane-Handa contributed to what we are today. So that project is very important, but that's not the reason anyway. I thought I could highlight that before I give the actual answer. Both projects are very important. This is why they are both on the priority list of 100. The Chitungwiza, but again, it depends on the work that we targeted to do. The Chitungwiza Passport Office, the entire work that was supposed to be done, only 28% was done. Why? Because there wasn't much to do. It was basically renovations, which constituted plus or minus 30%, which have been done. But the bigger chunk of the work that's supposed to be done is deploying networks, systems, and software, all of which need some bit of foreign currency. So that I am aware that my colleague Minister Prof is seized with that matter to try and procure that equipment for us, the equipment that's required for the passport office to operate. So that constitutes the bigger portion, but it's not there as yet. So the renovations have been done. Then if we come to the Mbuyane statue, the work that was supposed to be done by the Ministry of the Constraint, and that bit has been done. And 70% of that has already been done because it was lagged. So in a nutshell, both projects are important. That's why you find both projects on the priority list. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kazembe Kazembe, for that answer. I come back to you to sector for the second round. But it looks like they're quite happy with the information.
Thank you. Now we come to the second round. We need the new faces, if we can. Any volunteers? No? Anyway, we can give you another.
Yes. I asked for this is a follow-up. When I asked for the rationale in wearing a mask in a private car when you are who are you risking in your private car, windows closed and you are alone. I wanted that explanation because certainly you can't be. The windows are actually closing out if everything that you're breathing rather in your car, if unless you are saying that medically or scientifically the virus can find its way into the car or out of the car. So I wanted to find out that question.
But surely, Blessed, I'm sure the police doesn't check you through a camera that you are not wearing a mask. You are approaching a roadblock and you are stopping and you're talking to the police. That's how they find out that you are not wearing a mask. And you are talking to a public person.
I'm saying that you stop your car. If you're wearing a mask,
no, I think the minister explained that you are wearing a mask to protect yourself.
they stop you to check if you are wearing a mask. That's what they do. They actually have the road to check if you are wearing a mask in a private car when you are by yourself. So I'm asking of the rationale that even makes sense.
I don't, anyway, the vice chair of task.
I think, Blessed, thank you for the question and thank you for insisting what is the rationale. The rationale is that a mask is there to protect the person that is putting on the mask and the public. And I added saying, I mean, in a more dramatic way, but I believe it explains the point, that a car does not move in a house. It moves in public. And the fact that the police see that you don't have a mask, it means you are in public and you have opened the window. What therefore that means is, the rationale is just to have the habit of putting on a mask, whether you are being seen or not seen. They normally say the truth endures. So it's better to just be true to oneself and not lie about I'm in my car, because you are in public and you shall open the window and so forth and so on. So the most important thing is to make sure that when people are being asked to put on their masks, it's not harassment. It is service. It is help. It is protecting this nation. and the results are there for everybody to see, because we have so far managed to have relatively low infection rates. So I believe that your question, to me, is very important from the point of view that it enables us to keep on using more words to explain the importance of putting on a mask. Thank you.
I'm sure.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. My name is Bernard Paul from Newsworks. My name is Bernard Paul from the Newsworks. My question is directed to the Foreign Affairs Minister, Dr. Moyo, from Newsworks. Newsworks is a new kid on the block. Yeah. My question is directed to Minister Moyo. Following the signing of the compensation deed with the white former commercial farmers, how is Zimbabwe's re-engagement prospects achieved vis-a-vis international community, the United States and the EU? I'm saying following the signing of the compensation deed with the white former commercial farmers, how is the re-engagement progress? Because remember, in the past, government would say one of the reasons why Zimbabwe was slapped with sanctions was because it repossessed land from these farmers. So I just want to understand how the re-engagement exercise is progressing following the signing of this compensation deed.
Thank you. I'm Leo Munede from newslogo.com. It's just, I'm requesting a clarification maybe from the finance minister on maybe if you could tell us how much the board members whose fees have been hiked were getting in 2019 and how much they will be getting now, so that at least we get to know the percentage and compare it with other hikes. In a lot.
Thank you very much. My name is Nule Kolisani, Newsroom Africa. I don't know, with indulgence, Chair, maybe it was discussed before I came in. The issue of civil servants, we saw a tweet from the PS of information suggesting that when a civil service passes on, the family will receive an equivalence of 500 US. I want to find out from the Minister of Public Service the rationale to pay 500 US to surviving spouse when currently civil servants, when they go to a hospital, they can't afford to get treatment because they'll be charged. They'll be told their medical aids have got a shortfall, which they all need to pay in US dollars in most pharmacies. What's the rationale to pay $500 to his housing spouse and yet can't afford to allow the same civil servant to seek medicine at a GP? Thank you.
I'm not sure if that question came out of cabinet, but since the minister is here, you may want to clarify and his question. I heard it. I'll tell you. Yeah. He said he saw a tweet. Oh, yeah.
My question is going back to the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs. I'm taking advantage of the fact that today is around. Honorable Minister, I would want to know what are you doing as a ministry in terms of policing the police who are regulating, who are enforcing COVID-19 regulations? Because what we've seen of late is there's been a lot of corruption that's happening. It's now public secret that when one is found not wearing a mask, the police are asking for a $2 bribe. Everyone knows about it. So, and it's happening in broad daylight. So we want to know, what are you doing as a ministry in order to be curbing such corruption, which has become a cancer in our society? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Secretary. I know we dealt with Blessed Mhlanga San's question. And then the next was Bernard. Bernard, his question is directed to you, Minister S.B. Moyo. He says, following the compensation agreement deed, which was signed, he wants to know if what is the re-engagement progress?
Thank you very much, Bernard, for that particular question. I think it is common cause that the global compensation agreement is as a result of a conflictual position which emanates from the desire to be compliant to the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which is constitutionalism, and the settlement of the conflictual problem of land which had characterized this country between the Zimbabweans, indigenous Zimbabweans, and the former farmers. And this resolution, which government and the former farmers came up with, was a clear testimony that the two parties can actually come to an agreement. And that agreement came up with a proposal or with a figure of 3.5 billion. Now, firstly, it is compliant to the rule of law. Secondly, it is certainly putting the last nail on the issue of the land reform. And thirdly, it provides compensation in terms of the Constitution. Now, how does it affect re-engagement? It is now easier. In fact, it has been recognized by those countries you've mentioned, the US. Tibo Nadi himself actually tweeted over that particular issue. And even Europe, the EU have also done that. We've had the British also saying that. Now, the issue is, we are now talking of this past us so that it has been resolved by Zimbabweans and the former white farmers. And therefore, the original cause of the sanctions, which were imposed on this country, was primarily because of the land question. And the land question was the original cause of the conflict, whose museum is about to be built. And that conflict is the liberation struggle. And you don't solve a conflict unless you solve the cause of the conflict. You cannot solve the conflict unless you solve the cause of the conflict. And therefore, this was one of the measures which government found it prudent in terms of restoring this particular, so that the issue of land could be allowed, as Zimbabwe is open for business, so that it did not impede the development within the agricultural sector. It should also provide agricultural investment, and it would also at least have value with confidence of what we are supposed to be doing. So indeed, it has helped us to re-engage. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for the question. I do not have the exact figures here with me, but I can again share with you the principles upon which we made the decision. It's based on those who are managing, or rather governing and presiding over parastatals that are making profits and are commercial will get a higher increase in monetary terms than those who are presiding and governing parastatals that are not loss-making and are non-commercial. So we've overlaid, in fact, they are commercial or non-commercial, but also overlaid performance. But I don't have the exact figures here with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Professor Mtuli Ncube, for that answer. And Ncube Polisani, yeah, this is about a tweet he saw. I don't know whether we are talking about tweets in this cabinet press conference, but the Minister of Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare is here just to educate us on what happens when a civil servant passes on. What kind of package is given. Minister?
Chair, the insinuation is that what is paid when a civil servant passes on should be the same as what the rest of the civil servants are paid on an ongoing basis. The two are completely different. That tweet, I wish I was privy to the tweet and the details of it, but that tweet, if it was talking about people who have died in the line of duty, maybe due to COVID, being compensated, I mean, the surviving dependents being compensated, is a completely different framework from the continuous improvement on the working conditions of the rest of the civil service. If we're talking about how many people have died due to COVID, we are talking of just a few people. We are talking about once-off payments. We are talking of in addition to what they would normally get, which is the pensions of those people. If we're talking about health benefits for those who are serving, we cannot forget about the employer's contributions in terms of health insurance. It's usually employer and employee contributing. And then we also have to be alive to the fact that whatever is happening currently with our civil servants, the negotiations, is an ongoing process, and government's commitment to always improve the working conditions of civil servants cannot be overemphasized. But the two cannot be comparable. One is someone who has either died, who has died, and we are just increasing the benefits because in this particular case, there is a pandemic and people have to be compensated. We have even compensated people who have just contracted COVID-19. And I think it's proper to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Professor Madima. And the last but not least question is from Madzire. What's your first name, sorry? Your first name? Kudzai Madzire. Yes, and this is you actually know because you asked him. Yes, he is happy that the Minister of Home Affairs is here today. And his question, Honorable Kazembe is saying, what are you doing as a ministry to police the police that are corrupt, those who are actually supposed to be enforcing the COVID-19 regulations? There are a lot of corruption going on. That's what he says.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I would like to thank Kudzai for such a pertinent question. He wants to know what we are doing to police the police. We are doing our utmost, Honorable Chair. But what I also want to make very clear is that corruption is not committed by one person. It takes at least two people, and the other person is probably us. police cannot corrupt themselves. So I'm kindly asking, appealing to the citizenry to stop corrupting the police. Because we are the ones who are paying the police. Because we are the ones who are paying the police. Why are we paying them when they demand? Let's report to them, no one is above the law. And I'm sure you'll agree with me that of late, even police officers are getting arrested. No one is above the law. And especially these days, given the gadgets that we have, you can simply record a police officer who is asking for a bribe. All citizens to do is let's all police the police officers and let's stop corrupting them. Let's not pay them. I thank you.
On that note, thank you very, very much, Honorable Kazembe Kazembe. Don't bribe the police, report them. No one is above the law. I want to thank you very much. I want to thank my colleague ministers and thank you and Chief Secretary.
Minister and ministers, members of the media,